Welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Iran is once again in turmoil. Soaring inflation, a collapsing currency, and mounting frustration have triggered nationwide protests, the most intense since 2022. As Tehran cracks down, Washington warns of consequences, raising fears of a wider confrontation. What's driving the unrest, and what does it mean for the region? Joining us today on TVP World is Dr. Musmar, member of the advisory board at the Abrahamic Business Circle, a strategic expert on Middle Eastern economics as well as geopolitics. He's going to help us unpack Iran's volatile moment. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Thanks for having me.
So we've been following this protests taking place in Iran for the past couple of days, and there's usually two lines of thinking, one believing that this is actually going to lead to some sort of substantial change, but there are also more pessimistic people who are thinking that this might just fizzle out, much like the last wave of protests. So what's your take on this?
Not really. Normally, the system falls in a theme. There is a theme for the fallings, and what's going on now, it's really going on with that theme. The fall of the system is not because of those protests that's happening now. Actually, I will say the beginning of it was in 2024 in May when that helicopter fell down with the previous President Raisi, and most people were talking about that. There's rivalries that going on within the system, and arguments and disagreements who's going to rule. So it was maybe step number one. Number two is the economy and sanctions for a long time over Iran. We know. Venezuela, a country like 100% dependent on oil, they don't have that much other fractions of economy that they depend on, and of course they are under sanctions for a long time. And the latest decisions from Donald Trump, when his government sanctioned I think Shamkhani, it's called Shamkhani fleet, that was responsible about the black market of selling oil for Russia and for Iran. So that was maybe the last nail in the coffin. Of course, that escalated the situation inside the country. Now, the problem with the Iranian system is, he has two kind of speeches. One internal for this entire system came to power 45 years ago, that we have to be the powerful country with militias in the Middle East. We have enemies like Israel and the United States, and we have to be equal to them in power with nuclear powers and all that kind of stuff. So in the last 12 days war with Israel, that image was shaken big time, and actually gave an image that the Mossad is not infiltrating Iran, it's like living in Iran. We saw the results of destruction of the infrastructure, their factories of their ballistic missiles got destroyed, their storage got destroyed. And the latest was the attack from the United States and their nuclear facilities. So it's a theme. So I'm sorry, I had to tell you maybe a few more stuff, more than your question, but to answer the question, is it something that happening now? No, it's a theme, and what's happening now, I think, is the end of the regime.
So we can look at this trajectory of how all these events unfold that would actually accumulate to this moment we're looking at right now. Now, you mentioned something very interesting before as well about this dual messaging being the practice of this regime having a different message for external and internally. The other thing that I find quite perplexing, I think, is the difference in messaging when it comes to the president saying that essentially blaming themselves and the regime for it and telling the people not to direct their anger at the United States, which is starkly in contrast to the advisor to the supreme leader who pointed, of course, the spearhead at outside interference. How can you help us unpack this kind of also dual track of messaging when it comes to trying to quell these protests?
If we recall the Islamic Revolution in 1979, it came, against what's called at that time the autocratic regime, the Shah regime. So they used the same theme that's happening now, which is, people were oppressed, and the system at that time used like full force against the protesters. So whoever, went to the streets and came up with the idea of protesting and a revolution against the previous system, came up with it from like an economic perspective. But the problem with the Iranian regime, is the Shiite sects of Islam. And from their core values, they always believe that they are the one that they are oppressed, because based on their story, they're saying the autocrats, which is Prophet Muhammad's friends, Abu Bakr and Umar, they are the one they are stole the rulership after and leadership after Muhammad's death. So they are the oppressed ones, because they are the one that should be ruling at that time, and it was stolen from their hands. They use that and they play that game all the time with this system, with the Khamenei system. So once the revolution happened, they used the emotion of people that they were oppressed at that time from just a regular autocratic system that kind of was a little bit tough on the protesters and hammered them with a mirror hand. They used the emotion of the Islamic fraction of Shiite on that. So the revolution, just came to exist, and out of a normal revolution or protesting to an Islamic revolution. So that's how the system came. So once they came to power, they need to use Islam, because that was like kind of the core thing that happened to them, that happened and a chance to help them to rule and come up with the ruling system that they have now. So based on that, they have to have enemies, and those enemies are against Islam. So those are the biggest Satans and devils, whatever they call themselves, Israel and the United States and whatever. Of course, to achieve this point of view, they claim that, the Khamenei, or the supreme leader of Iran, he is a representation of God in this earth. So in this system, that should be against the autocratic system that the revolution was against, which is the Shah system. It should be a democratic system, but in reality it is not, because the last word in this system is for the Ayatollah or the Khomeini or the supreme leader. So no matter if they have election or whatever they have, it doesn't matter to them. The supreme leader, he could change anything with just his pin and a signature out of his pen. So the idea is this kind of picture that was the foundation of this revolution, of this Islamic revolution, is now shaken. It's gone. There is no military power or nuclear power that goes against whatever they call them. To people, they call that we have enemies that we have to be rivals to them and equal to them. So that's disappeared. And the second thing is, the economic, because of the sanction, because of the misuse of wealth, the sanctions lately on the black market of the oil, and the devaluation of their lira, and of course, the freedom, and as I told you, we could maybe keep talking about this subject for a long time, because it's like a theme of things that has been happening for a long time.
Right, and speaking of this theme, of course, I know you've probably seen what took place in Venezuela overnight, and with the Maduro's ousting, a lot of people are saying that this to Iran might sound like a shot across the bow as well. And certainly enough, we have a statement from Pete Hegseth pointing out this directly, calling out Iran. Let's take a look.
The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. and deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere.
So do you think that these warning shots, as well as the events that transpire, is going to play into this larger narrative that you have mentioning, the series of events that might eventually threaten the Iranian government?
Well, kind of similar, but the application will be different. If you remember the war, the 12 Days War, I mentioned at that time that the United States and Israel would like a change in the system and the regime in Iran, but they don't want to change it. They want the people of Iran to do it for many reasons. The difference between South America and the Middle East has so many complications, and any problem that comes from outside might create defense and sentiments with the regime, and that will create an actual war that the United States doesn't want to do, especially after their experiences in Iraq. So the United States and Israel, maybe they have plans, or maybe they're working on it, or maybe they're supporting, or creating the atmosphere for it, but they don't want to do it using their hands. So I think what we see now is a result of, more likely, because of the will of the United States and Israel after the 12 Days War, and the atmosphere now become more clear for people to come outside and protest. The problem of Iran has so many sects and different backgrounds that they are not really represented in the system. So the Kurds, the Azeris people in the north, Arabs, Bluchis, all those people are not represented in the system. They've been oppressed for a long time. So if those people feel that the system is weak, there is a support from the United States, like President Trump said. If Iran dare to attack the protesters, the United States will intervene. So, based on that, that will create sort of more confidence for people to get out, especially the less represented people. Now, do I compare both of them, for the direct will of the United States to intervene, or maybe just plans to create the atmosphere to happen by itself? I think it's different scenarios. But in the Middle East, it's very dangerous to attack a country with the size of Iran, the way the United States did with Iraq, because the United States and Israel doesn't want that to spill outside Iran.
Right. So even though the United States do want to see change, perhaps this is not from an outside force perspective, but try to be a catalyst for change from within. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. For more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.